The entire ballroom seemed to hold its breath when Mr. Julian Westmont's gloved hand extended in her direction. Eleanor Vance felt her heart pound against her ribs, certain she had misunderstood. There had to be a mistake. There had to be another woman behind her, some elegant lady she hadn't noticed approaching. But when her eyes met his, those green eyes that seemed to see through all her defenses, there was no doubt. That hand was extended to her, to Eleanor, the woman who had spent 5 consecutive seasons occupying the same spot on the fringes of every ball, close enough to hear the music, yet far enough to never be asked to join in. And there he was, the most watched man in the entire state, ignoring the implied invitations, the practiced smiles, the young women desperate for his attention, to extend his hand to her. The world stopped, time froze, and nothing would ever be the same. Before we dive into this story, drop a comment with a rating from 1 to 10 and let us know what city you're tuning in from. May this moment bring reflection and emotion to your heart. But to understand how we got here, we need to go back to the beginning, to the moment a woman learned to accept silence as her companion and a man decided to break that silence in the most unexpected way possible. Eleanor Vance was 31 years old, and for 5 straight seasons she had occupied the same place at every high society ball, always on the edge of the ballroom, close enough to hear every note from the orchestra, yet distant enough to never be invited to partake in the dances that made other women laugh and blush. It wasn't for a lack of beauty or elegance, quite the contrary. Her features were delicate, almost ethereal, with soft cheekbones that flushed easily and full, heart-shaped lips that rarely smiled in public. Her brown eyes held a depth that few bothered to notice, shadows of untold stories, of buried hopes, of a strength that refused to break. Her hair was as black as a raven's wing, always pinned in elegant styles that showed off the long, graceful neck she'd inherited from her mother. Her fair skin contrasted with her dark, well-defined eyebrows, and her posture was impeccable, the result of years spent resisting the weight of indifferent gazes without ever bowing her head. There was something about Eleanor that drew you in, if you ever bothered to truly look. A serene beauty that didn't shout, but whispered. She was the kind of woman who became more beautiful the longer you watched her, revealing layers of grace that hurried glances would never perceive. Still, something invisible kept her out of the spotlight. Cruel whispers said she was too reserved, that she lacked the sparkle needed to attract suitors. Others insinuated that she simply failed to arouse any real interest, that there was something wrong with her that no one could quite name. Eleanor heard these comments with a placid face, her dignity an intact suit of armor. She had learned to accept silence as her companion, to turn solitude into a refuge. She had something deeply valuable to lose, the dignity she had built on a foundation of resilience. After so many seasons of being ignored, she had allowed herself to believe she didn't need anyone else's validation, that her inner peace was worth more than any invitation to dance. Dancing had become a symbol of everything she no longer expected from life, of dreams she had learned to bury deep, enough that they wouldn't hurt. Yet deep in her heart, every song that played without a hand extended to her left a quiet mark, never spoken aloud, a wound that bled in silence. Was it possible to find true peace in invisibility? Was it possible to convince your own heart that you didn't long to be seen, to be chosen, to be loved? The house she shared with her Aunt Beatrice was modest but welcoming, located on a quiet street on the outskirts of the city. The windows always had fresh flowers in the sills, red geraniums that Eleanor tended with care, and the scent of lavender permeated every room like an invisible embrace. The backyard garden was her private sanctuary, where climbing roses covered the stone wall and a weathered wooden bench offered refuge on quiet afternoons. Eleanor spent her days reading novels that transported her to lives more exciting than her own, embroidering linens she would never use, and caring for the plants that were her only constant companions. She had learned to find solace in solitude, to build an existence that depended on no one but herself. Aunt Beatrice, a 60-year-old widow with kind eyes and hands, always busy with knitting, insisted that Eleanor continue attending the season's balls. "As long as there's music, there's hope," she used to say. Eleanor obeyed more out of love for her aunt than any belief in those words, but each event was a test of endurance that left her exhausted in ways no one could see. On that particular night, the Astor's ballroom was more brilliantly lit than ever. Thousands of candles flickered in imported crystal chandeliers, casting golden reflections on silk gowns and fine velvet coats. The perfume of fresh flowers mingled with the aroma of champagne and expensive colognes, creating an almost intoxicating atmosphere. Society had gathered in full force, hungry for news, for scandals, for anything to break the monotony of their privileged lives. Eleanor occupied her usual spot near a white marble column that offered some support, wearing a simple dark blue gown that highlighted her pale skin without drawing excessive attention. She was beautiful, as she always was, invisible, as she had always been. That was when Mr. Julian Westmont entered, and the very air seemed to change temperature. Tall, devastatingly handsome, with strong features and a presence that seemed to rearrange the space around him as if reality itself bent to accommodate him. He needed no introduction. At 34, Julian was the kind of man who made women sigh as he passed and men unconsciously straighten their posture. His broad shoulders perfectly filled out his well-tailored English wool coats, and he moved with the unshakable confidence of a man born to command destinies. His dark brown hair was impeccably combed back, revealing a broad, intelligent forehead marked by a faint, almost imperceptible scar. His jaw was strong, almost severe, covered by a 5 o'clock shadow he kept meticulously trimmed. His lips were firm, rarely curving, into a smile, and his intense green eyes held a calculated coldness that intimidated even the bravest. There was something about Julian that kept the world at a respectful distance. He was the kind of man who didn't need to raise his voice to be heard, who dominated any room with his silent presence alone. He was known not only for his position and considerable fortune, but for his absolute self-control and the way he was rarely impressed by anything or anyone. Eleanor wasn't looking at him directly when she felt the shift in the air. A subtle hush rippled through the ballroom, followed by curious glances turning toward the entrance. She kept her eyes fixed on an indefinite point ahead, refusing to be just another woman fawning for Mr. Westmont's attention. Julian walked calmly through the crowded ballroom, ignoring the implicit invitations in the smiles of the most sought-after young women, the subtle nods of ambitious matrons, and the exaggerated bows of men seeking his approval. There was something different in his gaze that night, a determination few recognized, a search that no one understood. And then, in front of everyone, he stopped. He stopped directly in front of Eleanor. She felt it before she saw it. She felt the gazes turn toward her like arrows, felt the murmur of surprised voices, felt her heart race without understanding why. When she finally lifted her eyes, she found his gloved hand extended toward her. For a moment that seemed to last an eternity, she couldn't react. Her legs felt rooted to the floor, and a lump formed in her throat. Surely there was some mistake. Surely he meant to ask someone else and had gotten confused. But Julian's green eyes were fixed on her, steady, respectful, and there was something in them she couldn't decipher. Genuine curiosity, perhaps, or something deeper she didn't dare to name. "Miss Vance," he said, his deep voice cutting through the ballroom's silence like a blade, "would you do me the honor of this dance?" Eleanor's heart was beating so hard she was sure everyone could hear it. Her hands trembled slightly, and it took all her strength to keep them still. To accept meant exposing herself, placing herself at the center of the attention she had avoided for 5 long years, risking a public humiliation that could destroy her. To refuse meant remaining invisible, safe in her cocoon of solitude, protected but eternally alone. How many times had she dreamed of a moment like this? How many nights had she spent imagining what she would say, what she would do if someone finally saw her? She accepted. She accepted because she couldn't do anything else. She accepted because something in those green eyes stopped her from backing away. She accepted because deep down, a spark of hope still remained in her, refusing to die. Her hand met his, and the touch, even through the silk gloves, sent a shiver down her spine. Julian's hand was firm, secure, and the way his fingers closed around hers conveyed a sense of protection Eleanor hadn't felt in years. The way he led her to the center of the floor was different from anything she had imagined. There was no rush, no showmanship, none of the trophy-like air some men displayed when showing off their partners. Just a careful, almost reverent attention, as if this dance was too important to be trivialized, as if she was too important to be treated with anything less than absolute respect. When the music began, a slow, melancholic waltz that seemed composed. Especially for that moment, Eleanor noticed something unsettling. Julian danced, looking only at her. He didn't glance away to see who was watching, didn't care about the shocked expressions around them, didn't seek approval or admiration from anyone but her. His focus was complete, absolute, and under that gaze, Eleanor felt something she hadn't experienced in 5 whole years. She felt seen. His hand on her waist was firm, secure, positioned with exact precision, never crossing a line, but filled with an intention she couldn't name. Their rhythm was perfect, as if they had danced together hundreds of times before, as if their bodies knew a language their minds didn't yet understand. The world around them seemed to dissolve into blurs of color and sound, and all that existed was the music, the movement, and the green eyes that never left hers. For the first time in 5 seasons, Eleanor didn't feel watched by the crowd. She felt chosen by this man, and the difference was overwhelming. When the music ended, she expected him to step away. She expected the formal bow, the polite thank you, the immediate return to the invisibility she knew so well. That's how it worked. That's how it had always been. But Julian didn't step away. He offered her his arm and led her to a more private area of the ballroom, near the doors that opened onto the garden, where they could talk away from the most curious ears. He spoke to her as if there were no audience at all, as if they were the only 2 people in the universe. He asked about her literary tastes, her opinions on music, her family history. They weren't the superficial questions of social courtesy. They were the questions of someone genuinely interested in the answers. Eleanor realized this with a clarity that completely disarmed her. He wasn't being kind out of obligation or for some social game she didn't understand. He was genuinely interested in her, in the woman everyone ignored, in the woman who had learned to accept silence as her destiny. "You seem surprised," he observed, an almost imperceptible trace of humor softening his severe features. "You must forgive my confusion," she replied, struggling to maintain her composure despite her racing heart. "It's not every day that a man in your position chooses the very woman everyone has ignored for 5 seasons." "Perhaps that's precisely why I chose you," he answered, and there was something in his voice that made her tremble. "Your silence has always spoken louder than any exaggerated laughter in this ballroom." The silence between them after those words wasn't uncomfortable. It was complicit, charged with something neither of them could name, with possibilities neither dared to voice. Society, however, did not remain silent for long. Comments erupted quickly, spreading through the ballroom like wildfire. Appraising looks followed Eleanor wherever she went for the rest of the night. How could such a coveted man choose the woman ignored for so many seasons? Something had to be wrong. There had to be some hidden interest, some cruel bet, some game no one understood. Eleanor felt the weight of this sudden attention like stones on her shoulders and realized the risk she was running. Her reputation, carefully preserved through years of quiet dignity, could be destroyed as easily as it had been ignored. The days turned into weeks, the weeks into something Eleanor didn't dare name, afraid that naming it would make it disappear. Julian began to seek her out at other social events, always discreet, always respectful, always attentive to the smallest details. He would appear at her side as if it were the most natural place in the world for him to be, as if he had always belonged there. The conversations between them flowed with a surprising ease that defied all logic. Eleanor discovered that behind the cold, intimidating facade was a man with a subtle humor that made her laugh when no one was watching, a sharp intelligence that challenged her intellectually, and quiet kindnesses that said more than grand gestures ever could. Julian discovered that the reserved woman society ignored possessed a brilliant mind that fascinated him, firm opinions that surprised him, and a silent courage built over years of resilience that he deeply admired. "Why me?" she asked one evening, as they sat on a discreet bench in the Carnegie's garden, away from prying eyes. Curiosity had finally overcome her fear of seeming insecure. "Of all the women in that ballroom, of all the beautiful, well-born young ladies vying for your attention, why did you extend your hand to me?" Julian watched her for a long moment before answering. The light from the garden lanterns played on his features, softening their usual severity. There was something in his gaze that made her hold her breath, something that looked like genuine vulnerability. "Because I've been watching you for longer than you imagine," he confessed, his voice lower than usual. 3 seasons, Eleanor. 3 whole seasons of watching you occupy the same spot on the edge of the ballroom, with the same unshakable dignity, the same impeccable posture, while less deserving women twirled through the center receiving attention they didn't value. Your silence has always intrigued me more than any social display ever could. Eleanor felt her face flush violently. 3 seasons. He had watched her for 3 seasons before approaching. The revelation disarmed her in ways she couldn't process. "And why did you wait so long?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "Because I wasn't sure I deserved your attention," he answered with an honesty that stunned her. "I'm still not sure." How could she respond to something like that? How could she put into words what her heart was screaming in silence? The weeks passed like leaves carried by an autumn wind, and with them, something grew between Eleanor and Julian. Something neither of them named aloud, but that both felt in every lingering glance, in every casual touch of hands that lasted a second longer than necessary, in every dance that became more intimate than the last. The seduction between them was elegant, built not on grand gestures, but on subtle details. A look that crossed a crowded ballroom. A conversation that stretched until all the other guests had departed. A dance where their bodies drew closer than protocol allowed. Eleanor realized she was starting to wait for him, to anticipate his moves, to search for him with her eyes the moment she entered any event. It was something she had promised herself never to do again after the disappointments of the past, something she had sworn to avoid at all costs. Was it possible to trust again after so long? Was it possible to let herself feel when the fear of being hurt was still so great, when old scars still ached on lonely nights? Julian, for his part, slowly revealed the crushing weight of his position. The expectations placed upon him since birth, the constant pressure to choose someone suitable for his name, the profound exhaustion of never being able to show weakness or make a mistake. "Everyone wants something from me," he said one night when they were alone in Eleanor's library. His voice carried a weariness few had ever witnessed. "My family wants an heir to carry on the name. Society wants an example of impeccable behavior. The women want the name and the fortune that come with it. The men want favors and influence. No one cares who I really am beyond all that. No one even asks." "I care," Eleanor replied, and the simplicity of those two words carried more truth than any elaborate declaration ever could. "I want to know the man, not the name." That moment, something definitively changed between them. Something that couldn't be undone, that couldn't be ignored, that demanded to be acknowledged. The story's main antagonist emerged with growing clarity in the form of society itself, personified especially by Cecilia Ashford. At 42, Cecilia was a widow whose once stunning beauty had faded with time, but whose ambition remained razor-sharp. Her blonde hair showed streaks of grey she carefully disguised, and the lines around her eyes revealed years of bitter expressions. She watched the growing closeness between Julian and Eleanor with eyes that never smiled, her lips curving into false smiles that fooled no one with any discernment. Cecilia had set her sights on Julian long ago, not for love, but for the position and fortune he represented. To see her prize slip away into the arms of a woman she considered insignificant, an invisible spinster with no important name or significant dowry, was absolutely unacceptable. "My dear Eleanor," Cecilia approached her during a charity tea, her syrupy smile not reaching her cold, calculating eyes. "What a pleasant surprise to see Mr. Westmont so devoted to your company lately. I imagine it must be tremendously comforting after so many seasons without a dance partner. But don't trouble yourself too much, dear. Men like him always return to what they know, to what is appropriate for their station. It's only a matter of time before this phase passes." Eleanor maintained her composure with considerable effort, though each word was a knife. "I appreciate your concern, Mrs. Ashford, but I believe Mr. Westmont is perfectly capable of making his own decisions without the need for outside guidance." The rumors began to intensify as the weeks went by. Malicious voices demanded definitions, speculated on intentions, questioned motives. Eleanor feared she was just a momentary whim for Julian, a novelty that would soon lose its charm. The fear consumed her on silent nights when she was alone with her darkest thoughts. What if he gave up when the pressure mounted? What if his family finally convinced him to choose someone more suitable? What if she was deluding herself again, setting herself up for another devastating fall from which she might not recover? It was during a violent thunderstorm that Julian dispelled all her doubts. They were in the small library of Eleanor's home, the only room where she allowed herself to receive male visitors under her aunt's distant supervision. The rain lashed against the windows with fury, the wind howled along the eaves, and the fire crackled in the hearth, casting dancing shadows on the book-lined walls. "Eleanor," he said, and it was the first time he had used her first name without the formal miss preceding it. The sound of her name on his lips made something awaken in her chest, something warm and frightening at the same time. "I need you to understand something with absolute clarity." She lifted her eyes, meeting his with an intensity that made her tremble. "I did not ask you to dance that night on an impulse or a whim," he continued, his voice steady despite the restrained emotion. "I am not here, night after night, out of boredom or passing curiosity. And I have no intention of backing down now that everyone is watching and talking. I have no intention of yielding to pressure, no matter where it comes from." "Why not?" she whispered, the fear still present in her voice. "It would be easier for you. Your life would be infinitely simpler if you chose someone society would approve of without reservation." "Because I don't want what's easy," he replied, moving closer to her. "I want what's real. And you, Eleanor Vance, are the most real thing I have ever found in my entire life." He stopped so close she could feel the warmth of his body, could smell the subtle scent of sandalwood that always accompanied him. When he kissed her for the first time, it was as if all 5 seasons of loneliness had existed only to lead her to that exact moment, as if every night spent ignored on the sidelines was just preparation for this instant. The kiss was gentle at first, almost a question, giving her time to pull back if she wanted. But when she responded, when her lips moved against his, with a hunger she didn't know she possessed, it transformed into something deeper. It was a kiss of promise, of conscious choice, of 2 wounded souls finally recognizing each other. "I've fallen in love with you," he confessed when they parted, his breathing ragged. "I fell in love with the woman who remains dignified when everyone ignores her, with the woman who needs no audience to shine, with the woman who sees me beyond the damned name I carry. And I've fallen in love with the man no one sees," she answered, touching his face with trembling fingers. "With the man tired of being perfect, with the man who chose to see me when everyone else looked away. Time, that relentless master that waits for no one, continued its inexorable course. The grand ball to close the season was approaching, and rumors circulated that Julian would make an important announcement. The anticipation was palpable in every ballroom, in every whispered conversation, in every speculative glance. Eleanor wore her finest gown for the occasion, a golden dress that made her eyes sparkle. Like never before, her hair was down in soft waves that framed her face, adorned with small pearls that had belonged to her mother. When she entered the ballroom on Julian's arm, she felt the gazes turn, some curious, others openly hostile. But she didn't care. For the first time in 5 long years, she didn't care what they thought. The ballroom was completely packed when Julian called for attention. The music stopped, conversations died down, and the ensuing silence was absolute, heavy with expectation. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, his firm, clear voice echoing through the decorated space. "For 5 seasons, a woman has occupied the same spot in this ballroom, always on the fringes, always ignored. A woman of rare beauty and incomparable dignity, whom this society chose not to see. I watched her for 3 of those seasons, admiring from afar her quiet strength, her unshakable elegance, her refusal to bow to the indifference of others." Eleanor felt her heart pound violently. Her hands began to shake, and it took all her strength to remain standing. What was he doing? "A few weeks ago, I finally found the courage to extend my hand to her," Julian continued. "And she, with a generosity I certainly do not deserve, accepted. Since then, every day has convinced me further that I made the wisest decision of my entire existence." He turned to Eleanor, and his green eyes shone with an emotion she had never seen before, a vulnerability he had never shown in public. "Eleanor Vance, before everyone who once ignored you, before this society that treated you as invisible, I declare that I choose you. Not as a passing whim, not as a social convenience. I choose you because you see me as no one ever has. I choose you because, for the first time in my life, I don't want to be just an empty name. I want to be the man who deserves to stand by your side." The silence that followed was charged with palpable tension. Eleanor felt tears stream freely down her face, felt the weight of all those eyes that for 5 years had ignored her now fixed on her with intensity. But they were no longer looks of indifference or contempt. They were of surprise, of reluctant admiration, of something that resembled genuine respect. Cecilia Ashford watched the scene with a face livid. With rage, her lips pressed into a thin line, a public defeat sealed before everyone who had once listened to her venomous whispers. Eleanor walked toward Julian. She walked with the same dignity that had sustained her through 5 seasons of invisibility. She walked because there was nothing left to fear, because she finally understood that her strength had never depended on anyone's approval. "I accept," she said, her voice clear and firm despite the tears. "I accept you, Julian. Not the name, not the position, not the fortune. You, the man no one else bothered to know." When he extended his hand again, it wasn't just for another dance. It was to claim his choice before all of society, without hesitation, without reservation. Eleanor accepted. She accepted, because she finally understood a truth it had taken her 5 years to learn. She didn't need to change who she was to be seen. She didn't need to diminish or transform herself. She just needed to find someone willing to truly look, to see beyond appearances, to value exactly who she had always been. Society, confronted with the unshakable determination of Mr. Westmont and the quiet dignity of Eleanor, was forced to accept the inevitable. In the following months, Cecilia Ashford withdrew from social circles, her reputation irreparably stained by the pettiness she had so publicly displayed. The wedding took place the following spring, when the flowers were blooming in the gardens and the air carried promises of new beginnings. The ceremony was held in the gardens of the Westmont estate, under a cloudless blue sky. Eleanor wore a simple and elegant white gown, wildflowers woven into her loose hair, and the most genuine smile she had ever worn in her life. Julian waited at the makeshift altar under a pergola, covered in white roses, and when he saw her walking toward him to the sound of a soft waltz, his eyes filled with tears he didn't try to hide. The years passed like pages turning in a book whose ending was infinitely more beautiful than either of them had dared to imagine in the lonely nights of the past. The mansion that once seemed cold and formal, filled with life, with laughter that echoed through the halls, with a love that overflowed in every room. 2 children came to complete the family, a girl with her father's green eyes and her mother's serene smile, and a boy with Eleanor's black hair and Julian's quiet determination. Eleanor kept her essence intact through all the changes, the same dignity that had sustained her in the difficult years, the same quiet strength that had made her endure when others would have given up, the same natural elegance that was independent of expensive gowns or sparkling jewels. But now there was a lightness in her step that hadn't existed before, a sparkle in her eyes that lit up any room, a tranquil happiness that radiated from within and touched everyone around her. Julian learned, over the years by her side, that he didn't have to be perfect to be loved, that vulnerability wasn't a weakness to be hidden, but a courage to be celebrated, that being truly seen by one person was worth more than the superficial admiration of entire crowds. One evening at a ball, many years after that first dance that changed everything, they watched their children play in the garden, illuminated by dozens of lanterns. The music flowed softly through the open windows of the mansion, the same waltz that had played when they first danced. "Do you remember?" Eleanor asked, her head resting on his shoulder as she had done hundreds of times over the years. "Remember what specifically?" he replied, his arm wrapping around her waist with the familiarity of belonging. "The first time you extended your hand to me, I was absolutely certain I had misunderstood, that you meant to ask someone else." Julian smiled, that rare smile she had learned to love, the one reserved only for her and their children. "And I was certain you would refuse," he confessed, "that you would look at me with the same indifference everyone else showed you, that I wouldn't deserve your attention." "I could never have refused," she said softly. "Even though I was terrified, even without understanding what was happening, I couldn't refuse. Something in your eyes told me that moment was too important to let pass." He pulled her gently into his arms, and there, in that garden, bathed in the light of stars and lanterns, they danced. They danced with no audience, no judgments, with nothing but themselves and the music that seemed to exist only for that moment. Sometimes I think, he murmured against her hair, that my entire life before you was just a prelude. Every empty day, every lonely night, every moment I pretended to be something I wasn't. It all existed just to lead me to that night, to that ballroom, to you. Eleanor smiled, feeling the steady beat of his heart against her cheek, that rhythm that had become her favorite song over the years. Sometimes, she whispered, all it takes to change a lifetime is a hand reaching out at the right moment, and the courage to take it. And there, in that embrace that held an entire universe of meaning, two souls who had started out invisible to each other finally found the place where they had always belonged. Not because fate had decided it in advance, but because they chose, day after day, moment after moment, to remain together. Because they understood that true love isn't found, it's built. Brick by brick, choice by choice, dance by dance. Dear listeners, we hope this story has touched your heart. If you were moved, please leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and tell us in the comments what part of the story resonated with you the most. Every day, we bring you real stories, full of emotion and humanity. Your voice is part of this universe.